It's a pleasure to introduce Dr. Nagaraju. And as you've seen, Dr. Naveed has shown you some of his pictures, and I would also like to share some of his pictures with you. Dr. Nagaraju is chair of the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences at Binghamton University, New York, currently. He received his bachelor's degree from the College of Veterinary Sciences in Tirupati and his master's degree from a prestigious IBRI, Izzat Nagar. He was also among the first batch of PhD students. He joined with Uma as the first two students in our department in 1989, and Dr. Naveed joined in genetics. After completing his PhD with Professor Sita Naik, he moved to NIH. There he worked with another legend, Professor Paul Plotz. And within a matter of short period of 4 years, he was appointed as a tenured faculty position at Johns Hopkins University in the Department of Rheumatology. His work in myositis is acclaimed all across the world. But he had different plans. So he moved with a geneticist, Professor Eric Hoffman, in CNMC, Washington, as an associate professor, and very soon became a full professor in the Department of Integrative Systems Biology at CNMC. He was also the director of the Research Center for Genetic Medicine. So he combined immunology and genetics to answer questions in both immunological diseases which affect the muscle, as well as genetic diseases which affect the muscle. And he's currently an expert in translational research in autoimmune and genetic muscle diseases. And on a personal note, I would like to add that Nagaraj helped me learn lab immunology. I was absolutely a naive person, a clinician who didn't know anything about the lab. And Nagaraj, Sunil Tabadgaon, Dr. Mishra, and I would spend hours in the lab learning together how to do lab experiments. I hope I can share the slides. And I think that time was a very great time. It was like a family feeling with support from Dr. S.S. Agarwal and Professor Sita Naik. We used to just cook up something in the evening and have a dinner together. So it was a real great feeling, and Nagaraj was a great support. So today, I request Nagaraj to share his journey with us, since we are already running late. And Nagaraj, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can see your slides.
Yes, sir.
But you can hear me, right?
Yes, very well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Amita. And I also want to thank Dr. Dhiman and Dr. Kapoor, as well as the alumni cell for inviting me today. So some memories are not faded easily. If for whatever reasons, they get stuck in your brain for a very long time. One of those is a December evening when I showed up at the gate of SGPGI. So I came to SGPGI around, I think, 7:30. That was one of the last tuk-tuks I took from the railway station. So I was very tired after 2.5 days of travel. Precisely 3 trains and 2 buses from my hometown Kadapa in Andhra Pradesh. For whatever reason, that evening was extremely cold. You know, for some of you, it may not be that cold. You all have to remember, in South, I only experienced 2 seasons, summer and very hot summer. Especially the luggage that I was carrying, the walk from the main gate to the PG hostel was probably one of the most painful short journeys I ever had. So I reached PG hostel. I did not see a single soul that night. And I waited for 10 minutes, and I didn't want to go back to Lucknow to find another hotel. And my tuk-tuk guy told me that's actually the last tempo. So those days, I think there were not many going back and forth between SGPGI and Lucknow. So within few minutes or so, I saw a guy walking around, coming towards the hostel, whistling. And that was Dr. Praveen Solanke, an SR in gastroenterology. I asked him, I'm a PhD student and I'm here to find a room. He said, then there's nobody here in the night to allot a room. Your best chance is to go back to Lucknow or go back and ask at the PRA. So with all this luggage, I walked again towards PRA. And then there they told me that is only for the patient and relatives, not for people like me. So I determined not to go back to Lucknow. And there's actually no way to go back to Lucknow. So I came back to the PG hostel and finally found one of the PhD students and stayed that night. And this, I don't think this memory will ever fade. So next morning, at the time, this picture you have seen, this is the administrative block. The labs were temporarily set up in the administrative block, and I met Madam Naik and other faculty members, and they were all so wonderfully welcoming that pretty much took away all the tiredness and frustration I had the previous night. Again, you saw some of these pictures. These are the initial batch of PhD students, and actually photoshopped Siri Sinha here. So after joining, and one of the things that we planned to do was to open all this equipment with weird manuals. And the translation of Japanese to English is actually pretty terrible, very painful to read. At times I felt it's probably much easier to learn Japanese than reading this translation. I'm just not kidding, actually, it's pretty true. So anyway, at the end, we persevered. And I still remember, Madam Naik, you're there, probably you don't remember, and you stayed pretty late till 10 o'clock, setting up the RO water purification system. And that's one of the nights I remember, but you stayed very late. I haven't seen or heard about a faculty member staying that late and helping a student to set up all these things. That's very unique. And I still vividly remember, Madam Naik, that you helping me to set up the RO system. So what we learned from this experience is that there is no real substitute for perseverance in science. So we ultimately set up everything and made a very smooth running lab. So acquiring those traits really helped me to become a scientist in my career. So you can see here, and my colleague Uma, and there myself with my good friend Naveed, helping to practice next day seminars. The morning immunology genetics seminars were a nightmare for many. Partly, both Madam Naik and Dr. Agarwal and all the faculty came to these seminars. If you haven't prepared well, it's likely that you will fail this exercise of presenting whatever the journal club or seminar you are giving. What I remember most after these seminars, almost all of us went to a coffee break at the main cafeteria. This is especially the residents and clinical faculty before going to the OPD. These 10-20 minutes of coffee get together really helped to bond all of us in the department. So I also see Dr. Mishra here, and I have to confess, I was particularly scared of Dr. Mishra's questions in these seminars. So generally, most of Dr. Mishra's questions They sounded very simple. As soon as he completed these questions, almost instantaneously you realize they are very difficult to answer because many of them have a very deep and many of them are very deep and very astute. And what I particularly remember most, Dr. Mishra, after OPD, came back to the lab. And I truly had the privilege of going on his scooter to have a cup of tea at the Daba outside SGPGI. I got to know Dr. Mishra not only as an outstanding clinician, a superb scientist, an excellent teacher, more importantly, a wonderful human being. Thank you for all those wonderful memories you have created, Dr. Mishra. I think the founders, in our case, Dr. S.S. Agarwal and Madam Naik, they are truly the visionaries. How can you advertise a new institution with no history about its strengths? They organize these training workshops, and Madam was outstanding getting all these grants to set up SARC schools. I ended up participating in most of these, and that's the first time I learned I do have a knack for teaching, and I do want to spend the rest of my career in academics. As you can see here, Madam Naik always invited all of us, especially PhD students. In general, PhD students are considered very low on the totem pole, but clearly not in the minds of Madam Naik or Dr. Subhas Naik. They always invited us. Not only invited, they made us extremely comfortable. As you can see some of these pictures, Madam really cooked wonderful dishes, and being a South Indian, she always prepared the best idli sambar. One of the things, if you carefully notice that the people who are eating, almost all of them are holding spoons. Being a South Indian, I never ate idli sambar with a spoon. I always mixed with my hand. I was hesitant. Madam Naik came to me, whispered in my ear, "It's fine to eat with hands." These acts of personalized caring, what makes Naiks unique and gifted mentors. Madam Parashar is one of those really warm, wonderful, welcoming people. I grew up in a small farming village, not very used to style, sophistication, or elegance in a farmhouse. Madam Parashar, apart from being a great scientist, teacher, mentor, and is a great host and a perfectionist. Every party she organized at her home. Tell you, I had multiple occasions, sometimes multiple times in a month, to enjoy Madam Parashar's wonderful, delicious dinners. And she always planned all of those meticulously and executed them meticulously. I had great time at SGPGI. I have to confess, I had an interesting reputation. Probably some of you know, but probably not many. So I learned about my own reputation one day when I was sitting at the cafeteria. One of our technicians, S.K. Divedi, came looking for me. He asked one of the cafeteria servers whether he has seen Dr. Nagaraju. So I was just sitting right close by, and the server told him, "Who is Dr. Nagaraju?" I don't know him. So I heard this conversation and waved my hands, and the way they looked at me, oh, that is Dr. Nagaraju. Then the server told him, I know this guy. If you have asked whether he has seen a guy who is always surrounded by the girls, he should have answered correctly. I still don't know whether that was a good or bad reputation, but now realize how people perceive you and your actions, especially in public. As Dr. Naveed mentioned, he has been a great friend and continues to be a wonderful friend. He always invited us to his home for cooking. What united us at the time, because there were no restaurants existed nearby, is the opportunity to cook together, eat together, and bond together. So not having a restaurant nearby is not always a bad thing. It helped us to meet together. And here is one of those cooking sessions and eating sessions. As you can see, a couple of our good friends from radiology also at Naveed's home eating together. So, and you can also see, I tried my best to impress my future wife with my cooking skills, but I can tell you this much, that effort utterly failed. As mentioned earlier, Madam Nayak and Dr. Nayak, mentoring was unique, holistic, and personalized. Folks at my home did not agree for my marriage with Rashmi, partly because she's a North Indian and they simply cannot talk to her. And they did not show up for my marriage. Madam Nayak and Dr. Nayak, along with few friends, effectively served as my side of the family for some of these rituals during this marriage. Their mentoring is unparalleled and very hard to emulate. Thank you, Madam Nayak, and eternally thankful to Dr. Subhash Nayak. You can see this first of my now more than 200 publications originated as APGI. Dr. Deeman very elegantly mentioned that Dr. Subhash Nayak took a personal interest in teaching and coaching how to write, how to communicate orally. Those skills I learned, as you can see, they clearly helped me. So Madam Nayak, I hope I haven't disappointed you with all these publications, and that started with you holding my hand and at times at your home, writing, rewriting my very first paper. I just want to talk a little bit about the science. William Harvey, a 17th century English physician, said it well. I'm not going to read this for you. The broader significance of research on diseases that affect an extremely small number of people. That has been my focus for the last 25 years. And primarily I pursued research on two diseases: inflammatory myopathies, for which cause is not known, and Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, for which cause is known. Some of the problems I try to think and address are simple and probably take several decades more to have some clarity. One of those, why autoimmune response to self-antigens failed to fully explain all the manifestations of the disease in inflammatory myopathies. When it comes to Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, what molecular pathways and genes are active before these children manifest symptoms? Often they manifest between 2 and 4 years. This is a genetic disease, lot goes on much before. Understanding those have been one of the most exciting, satisfactory feelings for the last 25 years. I also tried to think and address, can one initiate and completely reverse symptomatic phase of the disease by simply controlling 1 or 2 genes? And this is experimentable in the animal models. Most recently, probably now almost a decade, the recent days, my lab has been involved in doing a lot of high throughput drug screening. And some of the things that we have identified in the lab, we wanted to move it to the clinic. One of the problems we faced was, especially in rare diseases, in order for any drug to go into people, you need to have a lot of preclinical evaluations, both efficacy and safety. But in rare diseases, nothing was established. So what happens when nothing exists? Somebody needs to take the lead. And many of us are experts at complaining that nothing exists. I chose.
Can you move your slides? Your slides are not moving.
Thank you, Amita. I'm still on the same slide. I chose to address this in a different way. That is, to standardize methods for robust evaluation in the preclinical models. So the rigor is at the center of everything. So rigor, the essence of scientific work. So the efforts, along with the like-minded people that I made last 10 years, resulted in developing standard operating procedures and methods, how to evaluate a new therapeutic agent in any of these unique rare animal models. The idea, as you can see from this picture, Leonardo da Vinci is an expert, almost 16 different fields. We are trying to be experts in one thing. How on the earth this one person can master and excel in this many things? The motto, if you carefully look at it, is constant rigor. Constant rigor is at the center of the 5 pillars of scientific work. That is logic, experimental redundancy, error analysis, intellectual honesty, and probability and statistics. There is a famous National Public Radio reporter, Richard Harris. He recently wrote a book called Rigor Mortis: How Sloppy Science Creates Worthless Cures, Crushes Hopes, and Wastes Billions of Dollars. I'm proud to say that I ended up in his book, spent 2 pages describing my own efforts of creating rigor in science. I will briefly describe one other scientific curiosity that I pursued and continue to pursue is glucocorticoids, and many of you know very well. So these 3 gentlemen won the Nobel Prize for creating cortisone and treating handful of patients at the time. This is one of the fastest Nobel Prizes in biology and medicine. They published the paper in 1949, They won the Nobel Prize in 1950. Even during that time, they realized long-term high-dose administration of glucocorticoids have multiple side effects. As you can see from this image, essentially, they don't spare any organ. And devastating side effects often make clinicians to play with the dose, increase and decrease. And that has been the norm for the last 70 years. In order to understand how glucocorticoids really work, how come they have both beneficial as well as devastating side effects, you need to understand the mechanism of action of glucocorticoids. I don't go into detail. Generally, cortisol diffuses into the cytoplasm, binds to these glucocorticoid receptors. Almost 12% of the 35,000 genes or so have GREs. Majority of the metabolic side effects of glucocorticoids are due to engaging GREs on these many genes. Whereas the beneficial effects are often to the binding to the monomer, that is a powerful NF-kappa B inhibitor, and some of these glucocorticoids are also great membrane stabilizers. So the idea was, if this is that simple, can we make a ligand that simply binds to a monomer, does not engage a dimer? And as you all know well, there are multiple steroids. Some of them are more powerful with extremely powerful side effects. So in collaboration with John McCall, a really wonderful chemist, myself and Dr. Hoffman, we stumbled on what we call at the time EBP15 or vamorolone. Essentially, if you look at this, you don't have to understand any of this. This is prednisone structure, this is deflazacort, this is vamorolone. The only difference is you have 3 stumps here. In vamorolone, you have only 2 stumps. That is enough to dissociate the dimerization and also all the associated co-repressors and cofactors. A small change, less than 2.9 angstroms, has the ability to completely dissociate side effects from the beneficial effects. This is truly amazing. Where are we today? Started this company in 2008 called Revision. Did till 2016 all the preclinical safety evaluations. We are almost at the end now, but by next year we should have a FDA decision if this drug works. And unlike majority of the academic people, you go and seek venture capitalists. Their interests are very different. We decided to pursue something called as a venture philanthropy model, raised around $60 million in non-dilutive funding. And we're almost there. In few months, we should know this experiment of 12 years is a fail or success. I also started another company called Agada Biosciences. Wear multiple hats. This is immensely enjoyable, partly because teaching, managing an academic department, and the problems that come with it are entirely different. Raising money, raising resources, trying to go through a path in which I was not trained, that is business. Serving both as CEO or the vice president of research for these companies really helped me to realize we all have potentials. Until you explore them, there is no way you can realize. The take-home message is Do not be scared of failure. Try and pursue your passion. As Navid said, you know, he wanted to be an engineer, but still he ended up being a geneticist and a doctor. I'm not sure. I grew up in a farm. At the beginning stages, I wanted to be a veterinarian. So now I ended up being an immunologist in a lab. Not bad. Want to have this slide. This is what you are seeing is a relay, Olympic relay, 400 meters. Mentoring is simply passing the baton to the next generation of scientists. The runner finishing one leg is usually required to pass on the baton to the next runner while both are running in a marked exchange zone. And more importantly, and I want to again cite Madam Naik, I entered into this relay many times, strayed away and wanted to be away from the field. And Madam's unique mentoring brought me back into the field. And I'm eternally grateful for that, ma'am. Now, I'm still in this relay. And these are all the people who made me to run this relay. And now I have trained over 112 people. So they are the ones entering in this relay. Unlike the actual relay in the field, this is never ending one. You simply pass on the baton. I want to end with 2 slides. The mentoring that Madam Naik has done, you can feel it when we approached some of the mentees that she is coming to the US. This was celebrating her birthday a few years back. Everybody was so enthusiastic, wanted to come and see Madam. See, for those who are young, Madam is the greatest example of a wonderful, caring mentoring that people want to be associated with her, see her, irrespective of how long the time has been. I will end with this, my last slide. As I said, I had a bad reputation of being surrounded by girls. Fortunately, I am still surrounded by girls. And I'll end this here. Thank you very much.